World's Greatest Health and Exercise Myths, Top 10 Misconceptions. Russell Eaton. To download the latest version of this ebook, please go to www.deliveredonline.com. This ebook is free and may be freely copied and distributed, published by deliveredonline.com. Introduction: This book is for anyone who is interested in protecting their good health. The purpose of this book is to dispel once and for all the 10 major myths about health and exercise. The 10 myths that follow are misconceptions that are widely believed throughout the world. But advances in medical science and the latest research is now showing that the myths that follow are just that, myths. This may be the most important book you ever read, because if you currently believe any and all of the myths that follow, you are likely to be harming your health, perhaps seriously. You are urged to fully read this book for the sake of your health and well-being, and if you are not wholly convinced about anything that is stated in this book, then dear reader, for the sake of your health, you are urged find out more and check the evidence. The myths are not listed in any particular order of importance, they are all equally important in their own way. However, it is recommended that you read the 10 myths in the order presented. 6. Please feel free to send any comments about this book to mailto@deliveredonline.com, making sure that you put just the exact book title in the subject heading of the email. This will ensure we see it. This is a free ebook that may be copied and printed without restriction. All we ask is that no part of the book be changed in any way. For the latest edition of this ebook, please go to www.deliveredonline.com and scroll down to look for the title. Myth 1: High cholesterol in the blood is bad for health. Reality: the higher the level of cholesterol in the blood, the better for health. According to the World Health Organization, about 17.3 million people die each year from heart disease and stroke, and many more are permanently incapacitated, making clogged arteries the leading cause of death from disease. Clogged arteries are caused by atherosclerosis. According to Wikipedia, atherosclerosis is a condition in which an artery wall thickens as a result of the accumulation of fatty materials such as cholesterol and triglyceride. It is caused by the accumulation white blood cells that form plaques within the arteries and is promoted by LDL cholesterol. Put simply, Wikipedia is saying that LDL cholesterol accumulates in arterial plaque. For this reason, it used to be thought that a high level of LDL cholesterol in the bloodstream was bad for health. The thinking was that the higher the level of LDL cholesterol in the blood, the greater the chance that some of that LDL cholesterol will end up promoting clogged arteries, that is, heart disease. But this is not so. All the latest research is showing that LDL cholesterol does not cause clogged arteries unless it becomes oxidized. The level of LDL cholesterol in the blood does not matter provided it does not become oxidized. LDL cholesterol particles in the bloodstream act like a microscopic bus fleet, picking up and taking vital supplies to all our trillions of body cells everywhere. So LDL cholesterol particles carry nutrients to body cells where they are used for a variety of essential functions, such as providing the building blocks for cellular membranes, and for making hormones that are vital for life. We want our level of LDL cholesterol to be high because this improves the delivery of vital nutrients to cells throughout the body and the brain. A low level of LDL leads to poor health, brain disease, premature aging of the body, and a shorter lifespan than otherwise. To be clear, trying to reduce your cholesterol level is not necessary or even healthy, because we do in fact need a high level of cholesterol for good health. TSIA-30 TWNTKOB cholesterol level low. The reality is that we want our blood cholesterol level to be as high as possible for both LDL and HDL. Cholesterol is not a deadly poison, but a substance that you need to be healthy. High cholesterol itself does not cause heart disease. People who have low blood cholesterol have the same rates of heart disease as people who have high blood cholesterol. Source: The Cholesterol Myths, Exposing the Fallacy That Saturated Fat and Cholesterol Cause Heart Disease by Afravenskov. Regarded by most as the world's leader on the relationship between cholesterol and human health, New Trends Publishing, 2000, ISBN 13, 9780967089706. Coming back to atherosclerosis, LDL cholesterol is only harmful when it becomes oxidized. So the question is, what makes LDL particles in the bloodstream become oxidized? The answer is that lifestyle factors such as exercise, smoking, stress, air pollution and a poor diet can make LDL particles become oxidized. Exercise, in fact, is a major cause of LDL oxidation. Such lifestyle factors cause a shortage of oxygen in the bloodstream, and this in turn causes a shortage of oxygen for the circulating LDL particles. And this in turn causes oxidation. Oxidative stress is caused from a lack of oxygen, not from too much oxygen. When the LDL cholesterol particles become oxidized, they quickly and easily go directly into the inner lining, endothelium, of any artery in the body, including the brain, the carotid artery, coronary artery, or the arteries that supply your legs and arms with blood. Once there, the oxidized LDL particles become stuck to the inside of the artery/vessel, creating a damaged area where inflammatory cells such as macrophages and platelets accumulate. More macrophages, cholesterol and other lipids begin to accumulate at the site, forming a plaque that begins to grow thicker. Over time, this can slow or completely restrict the amount of blood flow that travels to one or more areas of the body. This can result in a variety of health conditions, including coronary heart disease, peripheral vascular disease or dementia. A high level of LDL cholesterol does not increase the likelihood or incidence of cholesterol oxidation. On the contrary, a high level of LDL cholesterol promotes good health, mainly by providing the building blocks for strong, healthy cellular membranes, thus preventing cellular decay. This greatly protects the body from aging and general body deterioration. The amount of cholesterol oxidation that occurs from poor lifestyle factors is the same regardless of whether you have a high or a low level of LDL blood cholesterol. All the recent research is pointing to the fact that we should be worried about the amount of LDL cholesterol that becomes oxidized, unwanted NTOL cholesterol circulating in the blood. Here are just two examples of such research. 6 of the studies found that total mortality was inversely associated with either total or LDL cholesterol, or both. This means that it is actually much better to have high than to have low cholesterol if you want to live to be very old. Many studies have found that low cholesterol is in certain respects worse than high cholesterol. For instance, in 19 large studies of more than 68,000 deaths, reviewed by Professor David R. Jacobs and his co-workers from the Division of Epidemiology at the University of Minnesota, low cholesterol predicted an increased risk of dying from gastrointestinal and respiratory diseases. Source: The Benefits of High Cholesterol, by Afravenskov, MD, PhD, 2004. www.westernerprice.org. When examining all causes of death, such as cancer, pneumonia and heart disease, the number of deaths attributable to LDL cholesterol levels exceeding 140 mg/dL is less than people with lower LDL cholesterol levels. According to an 8-year study of about 26,000 men and women in Izhara, Kanagawa Prefecture, the death rate of men whose LDL cholesterol levels were between 100 mg/dL and 160 mg/dL was low, while the rate rose for those with LDL cholesterol levels of less than 100 mg/dL. Cholesterol is an essential component for the creation of cell membranes and hormones. It's not recommended to lower LDL figures by means of dietary intake on medication. When women reach menopause, their cholesterol figures rise sharply, yet do not affect the arteriosclerosis process or development of heart diseases. At the very least, cholesterol criteria is not necessary for women. Source: Tomohito Hanezaki, professor at Toyama University's Institute of Natural Medicine, who compiled the new cholesterol levels guidelines for the Japan Society for Lipid Nutrition, 2010, reported in high levels of cholesterol said better for longevity, http://fires.org/news2038442442.html. This explains why it is perfectly possible for one person to have a high count of LDL cholesterol and be perfectly healthy, and another person to have a low count of LDL cholesterol and yet die from heart disease. For the evidence and more information on this subject, please see Beat Heart Disease Now, at deliveredonline.com. Myth 2, eating high cholesterol foods can be bad for health. Reality, eating high cholesterol foods is in fact good for health and protects against heart disease. Dietary cholesterol does not affect blood cholesterol. So foods high in cholesterol such as eggs, butter, cheese and some types of meats and fish are okay to eat in moderation and will not give you so-called bad cholesterol. Plenty of research clearly shows this to be so. Here is an example of such research. Dietary cholesterol has an insignificant effect on blood cholesterol. If the diet doesn't contain enough cholesterol, the body makes it. It has been known for years that consuming dietary cholesterol does not significantly influence blood cholesterol. The human body, that is the liver, produces 3,000,000 milligrams of cholesterol each and every day. And it is almost completely independent of how much cholesterol you eat in your diet. Dietary cholesterol, from food, accounts for no more than an insignificant 10% of blood cholesterol. Source, Brian Scott Peskin, The Cholesterol Myth, published by the Cambridge International Institute for Medical Science, www.cambridgeamdscience.org. The irony is that although dietary cholesterol has little effect on blood cholesterol levels, we do in fact want our cholesterol levels to go up, not down, as explained more fully in another part of this book. High cholesterol does not cause heart disease. The insanity of cholesterol-lowering drugs, conventional medicine misses the boat entirely when they dangerously recommend that lowering cholesterol with drugs is the way to reduce your risk of heart attacks. Source, Dr. J. Mercola, www.mercola.com. The human body makes whatever amount of cholesterol it needs, both LDL and HDL, for good health. The body never makes too much cholesterol to a level that becomes unhealthy. But a poor diet and other unhealthy lifestyle factors can impede the body from making enough cholesterol for good health. We want our levels of LDL and HDL cholesterol to be as high as possible for optimum health. When your cholesterol levels, of LDL and HDL, are too low, your health deteriorates rapidly and drastically in many ways, even leading to death. You can give your body a big helping hand in making enough cholesterol for good health by consuming a modest amount of saturated fat and cold-pressed monounsaturated oil in your diet, as these provide the body with the building blocks to make whatever cholesterol it needs for optimum health. But avoid trans fats and processed polyunsaturated fats such as margarines and cooking oils. Sally Fallon, the president of the Western A. Price Foundation, and Mary Enig, Ph.D., an expert in lipid biochemistry, have gone so far as to call high cholesterol an invented disease, a problem that emerged when health professionals learned how to measure cholesterol levels in the blood. Source, Fallon, S. and Mary Enig, Dangers of Statin Drugs, What You Haven't Been Told About Popular Cholesterol-Lowering Medicines, the Western A. Price Foundation. For the evidence and more information on this subject, please see Beat Heart Disease Now, at deliveredonline.com. Myth 3, commercial polyunsaturated oils such as canola oil and rapeseed oil are better for health than saturated fat such as butter and lard. Reality, all types of commercial polyunsaturated oils are bad for health and much worse for you than saturated fats. Virtually all commercially processed polyunsaturated oils are made from seeds and sold under names such as canola oil, rapeseed oil, safflower oil, sunflower oil, soybean oil, corn oil and others. They are polyunsaturated oils by virtue of being high in omega-3, or omega-6, or omega-9 oil, or any mix of the three. To extract and process the oil from seeds, intense heat is used. This has the effect of degrading the oil, the molecular structure is changed, and this in turn makes the oil much more likely to oxidize when stored or consumed. In fact, processed polyunsaturated oil will oxidize, that is go rancid, at just room temperature, so must always be kept refrigerated. When processed polyunsaturated fat is consumed, it oxidizes and triggers free radicals inside the body by virtue of having been intensely heated when commercially processed. Free radicals are extremely reactive unstable molecules that start a chain reaction of oxidation in nearby polyunsaturates. This in turn causes significant damage to LDL cholesterol particles, which then disappear from the bloodstream to form plaque in arteries and cause cell mutation that can lead to cancer. When you consume polyunsaturated fats at body temperature, which is 37 degrees C, a good 15 degrees C higher than average room temperature, they oxidize very quickly. The oxidation of processed polyunsaturated fats transported with cholesterol in the bloodstream is likely to play a primary role in the development of heart disease and cancer. It's the oxidative damage to our DNA that's likely to be the link between cancer and polyunsaturated seed oils. Source: David Gillespie, Big Fat Lies, Penguin Books, 2012. The new findings support earlier evidence from other research that consuming high amounts of polyunsaturated fat may increase the risk of cancer spreading. The propensity for polyunsaturated fats to oxidize is a risk factor. This leads to the generation of free radicals and eventually to rancidity. Source: Wikipedia. Antioxidants in our body help to shut down the harmful free radical chain reaction, but the damage is done. Our bodies make antioxidants, helped by a nutritious diet that provides the raw materials, vitamins, that enabled the body to build antioxidant defenses. But when we consume processed polyunsaturated fats, this can quickly exhaust the antioxidant defenses of the body. The essential oils from polyunsaturated fats, that is omega-3 and omega-6, are best obtained by consuming raw nuts and seeds, or from cold-pressed polyunsaturated oil that has always been refrigerated until consumed. The body only needs a minute amount of omega-3/6 for good health. Saturated fats should also be consumed regularly, but in moderation, as they provide the building blocks for the body to make its own saturated fat and cholesterol, both vital for good health. According to Wikipedia, examples of foods containing a high proportion of saturated fat include animal fats such as cream, cheese, butter, and ghee, suet, tallow, lard, and fatty meats, as well as certain vegetable products such as coconut oil, cottonseed oil, palm kernel oil, chocolate, and many prepared foods. The human body can only make two kinds of fats, saturated and monounsaturated, and 97% of our body fat is made of these two fats. Research shows that diets that include good amounts of saturated and monounsaturated fats rather than polyunsaturated fats are much better for good health and disease prevention. In the past it was thought that saturated fat increased the level of harmful cholesterol in the blood. This misunderstanding arose because it was thought that the lower the level of LDL cholesterol in the blood, the better for health. It was not realized that the level of LDL is not what counts, it is the amount of LDL that becomes oxidized that counts. The greater the oxidation, the worse for health. As mentioned in other parts of this book, we should not be fighting the level of cholesterol, we should be fighting the level of oxidation. The higher the level of blood cholesterol, both LDL and HDL, the better for health. Fat intake plays a role in blood cholesterol levels. Replacing carbohydrates with saturated fat was shown to increase HDL, LDL, and total cholesterol levels. Source: Wikipedia. saturated fat and cholesterol in the diet are not the cause of coronary heart disease. That myth is the greatest scientific deception of this century, perhaps of any century. Source: George V. Mann, M.D., Professor of Biochemistry and Medicine at Vanderbilt University in Tennessee, USA. For the evidence and more information on this subject, please see Beat Heart Disease Now, at deliveredonline.com. Myth 4: a low-fat diet is better for health than a high-fat diet. Reality: a high-fat diet is much better for health than a low-fat diet. We should not be trying to avoid fats in the diet, they are very important for general good health and a healthy heart. Fats provide, among other things, the building blocks for vital cholesterol that we need for good health. With insufficient dietary fat, the body will not be able to make sufficient body fat to maintain and protect the brain, body organs and just about every other part of the body. Do not think that if you are overweight you can just let the body use up your surplus body fat, that is triglyceride fat, for its needs. Unfortunately, body chemistry does not work like that. The vital body fat you need for good health must be manufactured by the body from dietary fat. It cannot use stored triglycerides as an alternative to making vital body fat. So do not try to avoid fat in your diet. The key point is to know what fats to consume and what fats to avoid. Briefly, you need to consume saturated and monounsaturated fat, plus a small amount of polyunsaturated fat in the form of raw nuts and seeds, or cold-pressed polyunsaturated oil that has been refrigerated. You need to avoid all forms for commercially processed polyunsaturated oils including margarines, and you need to avoid trans fats and hydrogenated fats. Did you know that a low saturated fat diet takes away your sex drive? Research shows that a low-fat diet lowers your libido. Here is what happens: insufficient saturated fat in the diet translates into low blood cholesterol. But cholesterol is critical in the formation of estrogen and testosterone. Less estrogen and testosterone means loss of libido. Even worse, less cholesterol reduces the body's capacity to process vitamin D. Less vitamin D leads to a host of health problems such as cancer, weak bones, heart disease, poor immunity, and multiple sclerosis, to name but a few. Source: Wikipedia. Furthermore, saturated fat is now known to not be fattening. Fat consumption satisfies feelings of hunger much more so than anything else you could eat, and this prevents overeating. Surplus body fat accumulates as a result of consuming sugar, fructose and refined carbohydrates. This injects a high level of glucose into the bloodstream, which in turn gets stored as surplus body fat. Fat consumption does not elevate the level of glucose in the blood. Here is a technical explanation. For fat to get fixed in the fat cells, a substance known as glycerol is required. Glycerol itself is supplied from a substance known as alpha-glycerol phosphate, also known as glycerol 3-phosphate, which itself comes from the metabolism of glucose, carbohydrate. It should also be borne in mind that for sugar to get into the fat cells in the first place, insulin is required, and this hormone is secreted most plentifully in response to the ingestion of carbohydrate. The insulin secreted in response to carbohydrate, but not fat, also affects enzymes in a way which inhibits fat breakdown and enhances fatty deposition in the body. So eating a glut of carbohydrate, not fat, is what is truly fattening. It's not a new message. Most of us will have heard this concept before if we're at all familiar with the work of the late Dr. Robert Atkins, and at least some new life has been breathed into this idea through the work of Gary Taubes, author of Good Calories, Bad Calories / The Diet Delusion. The original Atkins diet was criticized for being too extreme in cutting out carbohydrates TMC and including too much fat. This resulted in a diet that lacked fiber and lacked a wide range of vitamins, minerals, and plant enzymes. Long term, such a diet was not sustainable. However, the Atkins diet has evolved to be less extreme and is now adopted with great success by many people. The basic Atkins diet concept that a low-fat high-carbohydrate diet is bad for health still holds true today, having been thoroughly examined in many studies. As mentioned, evidence is mounting that saturated fat is not intrinsically fattening. For example, a large 2009 study looked at fat intake in 90,000 adult Europeans. Once confounding factors such as dietary and lifestyle factors were taken into account, the authors could find no association between total fat intake or intake of any specific type of fat and body weight change. These findings do not support the use of low-fat diets to prevent weight gain. They concluded that there was no significant association between the amount or type of dietary fat and subsequent weight change in this large prospective study. For individuals seeking to shed surplus body fat effectively in the long term, having control of insulin levels is key. This generally means cutting back on carbohydrates, particularly those most disruptive to blood sugar and insulin levels, such as foods with added sugar, and starchy staples such as bread, potatoes, rice, pasta and breakfast cereals. A huge benefit of adopting a low-carbohydrate diet combined with a high, but not excessive, fat diet is that people often end up eating less, quite spontaneously and, importantly, without hunger. For the evidence and more information on this subject, please see Beat Heart Disease Now, at deliveredonline.com. Myth 5. It is important to have a good ratio of omega-3 to omega-6 oil in the diet, as too much omega-6 is bad for health. Reality: the ratio of omega-3 to omega-6 oil does not matter, and consuming a higher ratio of omega-6 than omega-3 is not bad for health. There is a wide-held belief that the essential fatty acids omega-3 and omega-6 should be consumed in a particular ratio for good health, but this is simply not so. Omega-3 and omega-6 work together in our body and depend on each other, but the actual ratio of omega-3 to omega-6 is unimportant. It is a myth that human beings need to get omega-3 and 6 in a certain ratio, such as a ratio of 2:1 or 1:1. If you think about it, the idea is absurd. Our remote ancestors ate a variety of nuts, seeds, berries, grubs, insects, flowers, herbs, roots, and occasional meat, and all these food products had greatly differing ratios of omega-3 and 6. Furthermore, only some of these items would be consumed on any one day, depending on what could be foraged or caught on a day-to-day basis. Therefore, the ratio of omega-3/6 will have varied wildly from day to day and week to week. It simply cannot be argued that humans have evolved for millennia on any particular ratio of omega-3/6. Several studies have looked at the health effects of a diet high in omega-6 and low in omega-3 and have rightly concluded that the preponderance of omega-6 in modern-day diets is a cause of illness. But such studies have falsely concluded that the health problems of such a diet are due to the high ratio of omega-6. Such studies have not taken into account the fact that the harm caused by commercial cooking oils is due to the intense heat used to extract the omega-3/6 from the seeds. As mentioned, any kind of oil, particularly polyunsaturated oil, that has been heated causes oxidation and free radicals once consumed. It is this oxidation and free radicals that cause illness, not any particular omega oil ratio. Providing the diet includes unprocessed, that is not heated, omega-3 and 6, in any ratio, the body will simply use both omega-3 and 6 for its needs, and any surplus omega-3 or 6 is simply stored or excreted. The crucial factor here is to not consume omega-3 or 6 from any source that has involved intense heat at any point. Hence, either consume unprocessed omega oils from the original sources, such as raw nuts and seeds, or ensure that the oil being used has been cold-pressed and has been refrigerated at all times. Any polyunsaturated oil that is not entirely cold-pressed should be completely avoided, as the oil extraction process will have involved intense heat. To be clear on this crucial point, the ratio of omega-3 and 6 does not matter. What matters is that the omega-3 and 6 oil should not have been heated at any point prior to consumption. Furthermore, cold-pressed oils should always be kept refrigerated until consumed, as even room heat or sunlight can damage seed oils, even if cold-pressed. The typical American diet is said to have an omega-3 to 6 ratio of between 118 to 125, in other words much more omega-6 compared to omega-3. This is indeed unhealthy, but not because of the ratio itself, but because virtually all the omega oil consumption will have typically come from processed seed oils that have used intense heat as part of the oil extraction process. The idea that this omega ratio matters is a myth. Without any data to support it. Source: Dr. Walter Willett, M.D. American physician and nutrition researcher, professor of epidemiology and nutrition and the chair of the Department of Nutrition at Harvard School of Public Health. The optimal quantity and type of omega-3 fatty acid, and the optimal ratio of omega-3 to omega-6 fatty acid, if such an optimal ratio exists, remain undefined. Source: Wang Si, et al., Effects of Omega-3 Fatty Acids on Cardiovascular Disease, Evidence Report/Technology Assessment No. 94, prepared by Tufts New England Medical Center, publication No. 04AU9-2, March 2004. For the evidence and more information on this subject, please see Beat Heart Disease Now, at deliveredonline.com. Myth 6, fish oil and oily fish are good for health and help prevent heart disease. Reality, fish oil and oily fish are bad for health and actually promote heart disease, cancer and diabetes. Many people have been brainwashed into believing that fish oil supplements and the consumption of oily fish are somehow beneficial. Nothing could be further from the truth. All kinds of fish oil supplements give you an overdose of DA many times over. Too much DA is bad for health. It gives you cancer, heart disease, poor immunity and general bad health. For the same reason all kinds of oily fish should be avoided in the diet. Oily fish have oil in their tissues and in the belly cavity around the gut. Examples include sardines, herring and anchovies, and other larger pelagic fish, such as salmon, trout, ilish and mackerel. Source: Wikipedia. To understand why fish oil is so bad for health, we first need to understand that there are three types of omega-3 oil: ALA, DA and EPA. ALA is found in plant oils. DA and EPA are found in marine oils. The body can use all three types of omega-3 oil to make the essential fatty acids that we need for good health, but the body only needs to make minute amounts. At most 3% of all fats consumed need to be omega-3 and less than 2% is used and converted to the derivatives EPA/DA because that is all that is needed for optimum health. Omega-3 ALA is the parent omega-3 and is the ideal type of omega-3 to consume because this enables the body to make just the right amount of DA and EPA needed for optimum health. When you consume fish oil, you are consuming the derivatives DA and EPA that the fish has acquired by consuming other fish, or that the fish has made by consuming ALA from marine plant food. Omega-3 ALA is available in small amounts from many berries, seeds and nuts, and trace amounts are found in some fruits and vegetables. Rich sources of omega-3 ALA include sea buckthorn seed, berry seeds and oils, flax seeds and chia seeds, and their oils, sacha inchi oil, ikium oil, and hemp seeds/oil. ALA allows the body to make the right amount of essential fatty acids that it needs for good health without providing any kind of overdose. By just consuming a modest daily amount of raw nuts and seeds, or using a cold-pressed polyunsaturated oil that has always been refrigerated, you will acquire sufficient omega-3 ALA for optimum health. Now we come to omega-3 DA and EPA. Small amounts of DA/EPA are good for health, particularly if ALA is lacking in the diet. Small amounts of DA/EPA can be obtained from sweetwater fish, that is freshwater fish from lakes and rivers, as they only contain small 24 amounts of DA/EPA, not enough to overdose the human body when consumed. Also, small amounts of DA/EPA can be obtained from whitefish, which contain oil only in the liver, and much less overall than oily fish. Examples of whitefish are cod, haddock and flatfish. Whitefish are usually demersal fish which live on or near the seafloor, whereas oily fish are pelagic, living in the water column away from the bottom. Source: Wikipedia. The question you may be asking at this point is, does fish oil, and oily fish, truly overdose the body with DA/EPA? And if so, is it really so bad for health? The answer is yes and yes, and the evidence for this is plentiful. Here is just a small sampling. A. Men with the highest levels of DA, a type of omega-3, were 2.5 times more likely to have developed aggressive, high-grade prostate cancer over a 7-year period compared with men who had the lowest levels of DA. Source: Theodore M. Brasky, et al., Serum Phospholipid Fatty Acids and Prostate Cancer Risk, Results from the Prostate Cancer Prevention Trial, Am. J. Epidemiol. 2011. B. The study looked at men who developed prostate cancer and 1,393 randomly chosen men who did not have cancer. They found 25. That men who had the highest levels of omega-3 fatty acid compounds had a 71% increased risk of high-grade prostate cancer and a 43% increase for all prostate cancer. A high percentage of omega-3 fatty acids in the blood is linked to an increased risk of aggressive prostate cancer. Source: a study funded by the National Cancer Institute which also involved researchers from the University of Texas Health Science Center at San Antonio, USA. The study was published by the Fred Hutchinson Cancer Research Center in 2011, www.fhcrc.org. C. Fish oil supplementation in pregnancy does not reduce the risk of gestational diabetes or preeclampsia. Source: Xiao Jeju, Amjaitan Nutra 2012 D. Evidence does not support a beneficial role for omega-3 fatty acid supplementation in preventing cardiovascular disease, including myocardial infarction and sudden cardiac death, or stroke. This conclusion was reached by two sources, I. Evangelos C. Rizos, et al., Association between omega-3 fatty acid supplementation and risk of major cardiovascular disease events, a systematic review and meta-analysis, JAMA 308, 10, 1024-1033, 2012. E. Quark, S. M., et al., Efficacy of omega-3 fatty acid supplements in the secondary prevention of cardiovascular disease, a meta-analysis of randomized, double-blind, placebo-controlled trials, Archives of Internal Medicine 172, 9, 686-19-4, 2012. E. Fish oil supplementation has not been shown to benefit revascularization or arrhythmia and has no effect on heart failure admission rates. Source: Cotwell, Srada, et al., Omega-3 Fatty Acids and Cardiovascular Outcomes, Systematic Review and Meta-Analysis, Sir Cardiovascular Outcomes 5, 6, 808-18. F. Japan has one of the highest rates of cancer, per capita, in the world. The Japanese population have consumed daily intakes of approximately 7,001,200 mg of DA/EPA daily for decades, and it is interesting to note that they have much higher rates, compared to many other countries, of cancer of the esophagus, stomach, liver and pancreas. Source: Harras, Angela, ed. Cancer Rates and Risks, National Institutes of Health, National Cancer Institute, 1996, 4th edition. Every third death in Japan is caused by cancer. Source: Japan Board of Cancer Therapy. www.jbct.jp. G. Dan fish oil are shown as completely worthless in the treatment of Alzheimer's and other brain degenerative diseases. All marine-based, from the sea, oils like krill, squid, mussels, and fish oil actually increases risk of colon cancer. Fish oil weakens your immunity and is worthless in preventing heart disease in type I diabetic women. Fish are worthless in decreasing abnormal heart rhythm, called atrial fibrillation, or AF, and fish oil supplements increase sudden cardiac death in those with coronary heart disease. Fish oil does not slow atherosclerosis. Source: excerpts taken from Fish Oil Fallacies, Debunking the Fish Oil Myth, by Professor Brian Peskin, BSc. And Robert Rowan, MD, 2011, www.brianpeskin.com. H. Krill oil is often touted by supplement manufacturers as good for health. The reality is the opposite. While krill oil often has lower amounts of EPA, approximately 130 mg, and DHA, 70 mg, per capsule compared to fish oil, that dosage is still excessive and potentially harmful. Furthermore, krill oil is particularly prone to going rancid when consumed, causing oxidation and free radicals which lead to illness. Krill decompose very quickly, so the current thinking is either to dry them aboard the vessel and bring the powder back to a land-based plant for oil extraction, or to enzymatically digest the krill and then separate the oil. Source: Anthony P. Bimbo, Raw Material Sources for the Long-Chain Omega-3 Market, Trends and Sustainability, Part 2, 2009, www.aox.org. Fish oil and oily fish are bad for health for two main reasons. 1. Fish oil overwhelms the body with a dramatic and damaging overdose of DHA. In fact, fish oil supplements overdose the body with from 20 times to 400 times more EPA/DHA than your body would ever produce on its own. This is a formidable pharmaceutical overdose and very harmful. Source: Professor Brian Peskin, BSc. Robert Rowan, MD, Fish Oil Fallacies, Debunking the Fish Oil Myth, 2011, www.brianpeskin.com. 2. Cold water fish, that is saltwater fish that live in the oceans, live in temperatures as low as 0 degrees C, and even warm water fish live in 21 degrees C waters. However, humans live with body temperatures close to 38 degrees C. At that temperature, fish oil when consumed quickly becomes rancid and toxic to the body. If the growing research against fish oil is not enough to convince you, consider that fish oil causes cancer and heart disease. As mentioned, when fish oil is taken, the human body temperature quickly makes the fish oil oxidize, go rancid, and this in turn triggers free radicals into causing cancer and ill health. Even cold-pressed fish oil that has been refrigerated will degenerate as soon as consumed. Worse still, the primary method for extracting oil from fish is the wet pressing method, according to the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations. Before oil can be extracted, the fish are heated to approximately 95 C to separate water and oil from protein. Now let's consider cold-pressed fish oil. Fish don't freeze in icy cold waters. Why not? Because they have vastly increased amounts of the essential fatty acid derivatives EPA and DHA compared to what naturally occurs in humans. In a fish, the EPA/DHA acts as biological antifreeze. But in humans, the highly concentrated EPA/DHA consumed from fish oil cannot be used by the body and quickly breaks down at body temperature, causing oxidation and disease. Most physicians do not understand that the derivatives EPA/DHA are already made in the body from the parent omega on an as-needed basis in extremely limited quantities. Humans and fish consume omega-3 from the plant kingdom. In the case of oily fish, their bodies have evolved to convert the EPA they consume into large amounts of EPA/DHA, as this stops their bodies from freezing in the cold waters of the ocean. But for humans, consumption of the derivatives EPA/DA from oily fish or fish oil is completely unnecessary. Fish oil's active ingredients consist entirely of the derivatives EPA/DA in very large amounts far greater than the human body needs, thereby overdosing the body and causing damage instead of good health. Anything that increases oxidation of the body precipitates free radicals, which in turn increase the risk of cancer and heart disease. In the case of fish oil, the concentrated DA is shown to increase the risk of various types of cancer, including colon and skin cancer. A 2010 article published in Medical News Today and a top medical journal, Cancer Research, revealed that when mice were given high doses of fish oil, they developed severe colitis, inflammation, and then deadly, late-stage cancer of the lining of the colon in only 4 weeks following inflammation. The study concluded, the findings support a growing body of literature implicating harmful effects of high doses of fish oil consumption in relation to certain diseases. In 2006, the National Cancer Institute warned that fish oil would fail to protect against cancer. Source: omega-3 fatty acids unlikely to prevent cancer, reported by the National Cancer Institute, Cancer Bulletin, Volume 3/No. 5, January 31, 2006. In this study of more than 700,000 individuals, it was reported that there was nothing to link omega-3 fatty acids with reduced risk of overall occurrence of cancer, or reduced risk of any single type of cancer. The negative relationship between fish oil and skin cancer has been known since the 1970s. A study of cod liver oil intake by over 50,000 Norwegian men and women over a 12-year period found a strong, increased risk for melanoma, the most dangerous type of skin cancer. Source: Virord, M.B., et al. Diet and risk of cutaneous malignant melanoma, a prospective study of 50,757 Norwegian men and women, int. J. Cancer, 71. 604, 1997. In fact, in this study there was approximately 3 times the incidence of skin cancer in the cod liver oil users. The study was particularly significant, based on its unbiased approach, high participation and a good response rate. Note: cod is not an oily fish, so consuming modest amounts of cod will not overwhelm the body with EPA/DA. But cod liver oil contains highly concentrated amounts of EPA/DA. Remember that all kinds of fish liver are very high in EPA/DA. Let's be clear at this point, EPA and DA are essential fatty acids that the body needs for good health, but we only need a minute amount for optimum health. The problem with fish oil, and oily fish, is that you get overdosed with EPA/DA, and this is bad for health. It is much better to consume the parent omega-3 oil, that is ALA, as this allows the body to make the right amount of EPA/DA derivatives needed for good health. If you don't have sufficient, fully functional parent omega-3, that is ALA, it is impossible to get sufficient derivatives, that is EPA and DA. It really is that simple. Concentrate on the parent, and the derivatives, the offspring, will take care of themselves. Source: Fish Oil Fallacies, Debunking the Fish Oil Myth, by Professor Brian Peskin, B.Sc. and Robert Rowan, M.D., 2011, www.brianpeskin.com. There is also growing evidence that fish oil consumption increases the risk of skin cancer and heart disease. A study done at the University of Pittsburgh Graduate School of Public Health on the relationship between omega-3 fatty acids, type 1 diabetes, and CVD-14 reported that the consumption of higher amounts of omega-3 fatty acids, such as found in fish oil, did not lower the risk of heart disease for women with type 1 diabetes compared to the population at large. Perhaps one of the worst aspects of fish oil is that it significantly raises blood sugar. This in turn increases arterial plaque and the risk of heart disease. This is what happens: fish oil overloads your 100 trillion cell membranes with DA/EPA, which is something that nature never intended. It significantly impairs the effectiveness of the insulin your pancreas produces. By impairing the body's insulin response, the level of blood sugar cannot be kept under control. As a result, fish oil raises blood sugar levels and makes insulin requirements increase. The high blood sugar stays in the bloodstream, not the tissue. Therefore, fish oil starves your muscles of energy, making you feel lethargic, tired and lacking in energy. The combination of high blood sugar and a lack of energy is a perfect recipe for making you overweight, and this in turn increases the risk of heart disease. In another 1986 study by H. Knapp, it was shown that fish oil actually increases the accumulation of plaque in arteries. In patients with atherosclerosis, prostacyclin biosynthesis fell by a mean, average, of 42% during the fish oil period. Source Knapp, TL, Nevo KHEIV indexes of platelet and vascular function during fish oil administration in patients with atherosclerosis, The New England Journal of Medicine, Volume 314, April 10, 1986, No. 15, pages 937-942. The Knapp study shows that fish oil can reduce prostacyclin by a staggering 42%. Prostacyclin is the body's natural platelet antiadhesive. The last thing a heart disease patient needs is a reduction in this critical substance. Heart disease patients require more, not less prostacyclin. Decreased prostacyclin significantly increases, not decreases, the severity of heart disease. In another 2010 study led by Jarrett Berry, it was shown that fish consumption was worthless in decreasing abnormal heart rhythm called atrial fibrillation, or AF. The study looked at 44,720 older women to determine what association, if any, there was between fish oil and atrial fibrillation, and found that eating fish did nothing to help an abnormal heartbeat. Source at Daughtry, JDBMD, TL. Dietary fish intake and incident atrial fibrillation, 2010, The American Journal of Cardiology, v. 105, I. 6, 844-848. Worse still is the fact that fish oil supplements can increase sudden cardiac death in those with heart disease, and many people have heart disease without knowing it. As published in the European Journal of Clinical Nutrition in 2003, a study was done which looked at patients with angina, severe heart pain caused by restricted blood flow, to see if their mortality could be reduced with changes in diet. The study found that oily fish or fish oil capsules significantly increased the death rate from heart attack. Source, Burr, et al., Lack of benefit of dietary advice to men with angina, results of a controlled trial, Jacqueline Newt 2003, 57, 193200. A study published in Cardiovascular Research found that fish oil did not stop thickening of the artery. On the contrary, the artery wall got thicker with fish oil ingestion. Source, Angara, P. et al., Effect of dietary supplementation with omega-3 fatty acids on progression of atherosclerosis, plaque buildup in interior of arteries, in carotid, heart to brain, arteries, Cardiovascular Research, 54, 183-190, 2002. Another experiment, this one by Harvard Medical School, showed similar results. As published in the Journal of the American College of Cardiology in 1995, 29 patients with coronary heart disease were either given 6 grams of fish oil or 6 grams of olive oil daily on a random basis. After 2 years, the results were that fish oil treatment did not result in any positive changes in the diameter of the arteries. In other words, clogging of the arteries was not decreased with the fish oil supplement. Source, Sachs, Frank M. et al., Controlled Trial of Fish Oil for Regression of Human Coronary Atherosclerosis, Journal of the American College of Cardiology Volume 25, No. 7, June 1995, 1490-28. If fish oil supplements worked, they should have been able to at least stop a pre-existing arterial clog from worsening. If they couldn't, then there is no reason to assume that the fish oil could possibly prevent a clog from forming. There would be no causal mechanism, no metabolic pathway that would allow that protective effect. Examining an existing clog's growth rate is a very good test, similar to examining the growth of an existing cancer tumor. When actual science, instead of merely consensus, is used, the results of research is predictable. Fish oil supplements alone are found worthless or hazardous. Source: Fish Oil Fallacies, Debunking the Fish Oil Myth, by Professor Brian Peskin, BSc. And Robert Rowan, MD, 2011, www.brianpeskin.com. A 2010 study done at the University of Pittsburgh Graduate School of Public Health on the relationship between omega-3 fatty acids, type 1 diabetes, and heart disease reported that the consumption of higher amounts of omega-3 fatty acids, such as found in fish oil, did not lower the risk of type 1 diabetes compared to the population at large. Source: Women with type 1 diabetes receive no heart benefit from omega-3, Medical News Today, Diabetes, article URL, www.medicalnewstoday.com/articles/193107, 2010. But worse still is the fact that diabetics have a significantly increased risk of heart disease, and diabetes has become the #1 epidemic in all developed countries of the world. As mentioned, fish oil has a detrimental effect on blood sugar and insulin, and this combination increases the risk of diabetes in a person who regularly takes fish oil supplements or consumes oily fish. Staying with diabetes, in a 1,989 study, fish oil was administered to 4 insulin-dependent diabetic patients for 6 months. Though their body weights did not change, a key measure of their blood sugar levels increased 16%. Thus their blood sugar control worsened, and they all had to increase their insulin dosage throughout the 6-month period in order to maintain a constant blood sugar level. The study concluded that fish oil consumption worsens glycemic tolerance, a devastating effect for any diabetic. Source: Stackpool, P. et al., Dose-response effects of dietary marine oil on carbohydrate and lipid metabolism in normal subjects and patients with hypertriglyceridemia. Metabolism, Volume 38, No. 10, October, 1989, pages 946-956. Another more recent study in 2003 confirmed the 1989 findings. The study led by J. D. Daru concluded that fish oil reduced the road glucose by 26% by reducing glucose metabolic clearance rate, possibly by facilitating fat oxidation. In other words, fish oil greatly stopped the body from bringing down the level of glucose in the blood. To make matters worse, the study noted that the composition of the membranes in the body remained altered for 18 weeks after the fish oil was stopped. Source: D. Daru, J. et al., Fish oil supplementation reduces stimulation of plasma glucose fluxes during exercise in untrained males, British Medical Journal of Nutrition, 2003, 90, 777-786. Unless you are diabetic, the body normally tightly regulates the level of glucose in the blood, keeping it from rising too high. The 2003 D. Daru study shows that fish oil supplementation for a diabetic is truly bad because it takes a full 18 weeks to reverse the negative effect of the incorporation of EPA/DA from fish oil into the cell membrane. When there is too much glucose in the blood and not enough insulin to bring the level down, this causes many health problems. For example, a 2003 study headed by A. Maritime concluded that there is increasing evidence in both experimental and clinical studies showing that oxidative stress plays a major role in the pathogenesis of both types of diabetes mellitus. Free radicals are formed disproportionately in diabetes by glucose oxidation. and the subsequent oxidative degradation of glycated proteins. Abnormally high levels of free radicals and the simultaneous decline of antioxidant defense mechanisms can lead to cellular damage and development of insulin resistance. Now ulcerative TL, SMA, diabetes, oxidative stress, and antioxidants, a review, Mold-Toxicol. 2003, 17-1, 24-38. This study shows that oxidative stress increases the risk or severity of diabetes, so we have a direct link between fish oil and diabetes. Fish oil oxidizes when consumed, causing oxidative stress in the body, and this in turn increases the risk of diabetes. When this is combined with other research showing that fish oil creates insulin resistance, you have a powerful recipe for diabetes. Does fish oil help combat Alzheimer's disease and other cognitive disorders? With regard to the human brain, recent research shows that data taken in fish oil has no beneficial effects in cognitive disorders. Source: Quinn, J. et al., Docosahexaenoic acid supplementation and cognitive decline in Alzheimer's disease, a randomized trial, Journal of the American Medical Association, JAMA, November 3, 2010, Volume 304, No. 17, pages 1903 to 1911. DES the most abundant long-chain polyunsaturated fatty acid in the brain. In the above-mentioned JAMA study, Alzheimer's sufferers were given the DES supplement, algae-based, for 18 months. If the marine-based oil were beneficial, there should certainly be a positive result in Alzheimer's patients, but there was no improvement. The JAMA study showed that even when the levels of EPA/DA are measured as low in the subjects, increasing them fails to help a group that should clearly benefit Alzheimer's patients. This is noteworthy because if fish oil were to be of any benefit, it should be with respect to maladies of the brain. There are no peer-reviewed studies that show fish oil supplements of EPA/DA to be beneficial to the brain, let alone to health in general. The brain only needs a minute amount of fresh DA to replace the DA that naturally melts away over time. This fresh DA is easily obtained from consuming a varied and nutritious diet or from occasional nuts, seeds, and cold-pressed oils made from nuts and seeds. According to the USDA, a mere 0.046% of ELA is needed by the body to make enough DA for optimum health. Source: Polsky, R.J., et al., Physiological Compartmental Analysis of Alpha-linolenic Acid Metabolism in Adult Humans, Lipids Res 2001 42, 1257-65. As soon as you consume fish oil or oily fish, the overdose of DA immediately goes rancid and diverts antioxidant defenses from the brain to the liver. Your body's antioxidants are forced to combat the areas first receiving the overdose of fish oil that users receive, like the liver. But guess what? The precious antioxidants your brain requires are diverted to this overdosed area, where they are overwhelmed and can't do the job. Severe damage is the result in both the overloaded tissue of the liver and areas of the brain, where antioxidants are now in short supply. Source: Fish Oil Fallacies, Debunking the Fish Oil Myth, by Professor Brian Peskin, BSc. And Robert Rowan, MD, 2011, www.brianpeskin.com. The net effect of taking fish oil is that you deprive the brain of its antioxidant defenses, thus increasing oxidative damage in the brain. Several studies show that a principal cause of Alzheimer's is oxidative stress in the brain. Simply look for Alzheimer's plus oxidative stress on internet and you will find plenty of evidence. Oxidative stress may be significant in the formation of the Alzheimer's disease. Source: Sibi, Wang X, et al., Oxidative Stress Signaling in Alzheimer's Disease, Car Alzheimer's 5, 6, 525-32, December 2008. Our analysis suggests that there is currently no evidence that omega-3 fatty acid supplements provide a benefit for memory or concentration in later life. We hope that people will use this new evidence to help inform their decisions on dietary supplement use. Source: The Cochrane Review, 2012. Researchers looked specifically at so-called gold standard studies, those that randomly assigned people to take either omega-3s or a placebo and then tracked the participants over time. The authors of the review, Alan Anger, et al., from the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine, included 3 studies involving a total of 3,536 people over the age of 60, which lasted between 6 and 40 months. All the participants started the studies in good cognitive health. For more information on this subject, please see Beat Heart Disease Now at deliveredonline.com. Myth 7: Exercise is good for health, providing it is not overdone. Reality: all kinds of exercise are bad for health. However little the exercise, the mounting evidence that exercise is bad for health is truly overwhelming and much too long to list here. Equally, the list of woes caused by exercise is almost endless, ranging from cancer and heart disease to obesity and diabetes. Any physical exertion that is sufficiently sustained to make you breathless and or sweaty is referred to as exercise. This fits in with common sense and the universal understanding of what is meant by exercise. Non-stressful physical activity is good and necessary due to the fact it helps strengthen and maintain our muscles in the arms and legs. Providing we stay active in our daily lives, such as walking, going upstairs, and lifting things, this is usually enough to achieve sufficiently firm muscles. Exercise is bad for you for 2 main reasons: it makes you breathless and it makes you sweat. When you become breathless, however little, you deprive the body of oxygen and carbon dioxide. This in turn oxidizes the body, causing a host of health problems. When you sweat, you lose a rich soup of minerals and vitamins that cannot be properly replaced from the diet or from nutritional supplements. Regular sweating through exercise accounts for much illness and millions of deaths throughout the world. If exercise were in any way remotely beneficial, you would think that people who exercise should live longer than the average couch potato. But the average couch potato in America lives to be 75.5. The average athlete, depending on the sport and the level of competence, lives to be 62 to 68. So there is something wrong with the theory that exercise alone is good for you. Studies have found that professional cyclists are 5 times more likely to have abnormal heart rhythms, while 1 in 8 of apparently healthy marathon runners had signs of potentially fatal heart scarring. Studies that show exercise to be beneficial are usually confusing 2 things: exercise that makes you breathless/sweaty with physical activity that does not. There is a world of difference between the 2. Here are just some of the health problems caused by exercise. Exercise harms vital organs. Hypocapnia, carbon dioxide deficiency, caused by exercise restricts blood vessels, and this in turn harms vital organs. Exercise causes free radicals. Free radical generation takes place due to lack of oxygen. This ages the body and causes much illness, cell mutation, and cancer. Exercise causes inflammation. Lack of oxygen caused by exercise also leads to tissue inflammation and aggravated illness. Exercise causes psychological abnormalities. Nerve stabilization is due to the calmative or sedative effects of carbon dioxide on nerve cells. As stated, exercise makes you breathless, hyperventilation, and causes a lack of carbon dioxide in the brain. Hyperventilation leads to spontaneous and asynchronous firing of neurons. Source: Huttunen J. et al. Effects of voluntary hyperventilation on cortical sensory responses, electroencephalographic and magnetoencephalographic studies, Experimental Brain Research 1999, Volume 125 No. 3, p. 248-254. Virtually all mental and psychological abnormalities, ranging from panic attacks and seizures to sleeping problems, Alzheimer's disease, depression, and schizophrenia are ultimately caused by asynchronous, that is rapid, firing of neurons in the brain. Human cognition depends upon slow-firing neurons. Good mental health and clear thinking depend upon our ability to store and manipulate thoughts on a sort of mental sketchpad. Source: Minitz Wang, et al., NMDA receptors subserve persistent neuronal firing during working memory in dorsolateral prefrontal cortex, Neuron Journal, Volume 77, Issue 4, 736 749, 20th of February 2013. Exercise causes poor posture and aggression. Muscle relaxation or relaxation of muscle cells is normal at high carbon dioxide levels, while hypocapnia, lack of carbon dioxide caused by exercise, causes muscular tension, poor posture, aggression, and violence. Exercise harms the lungs and airways. Bronchodilation makes the tubes in lungs become narrower or constricted, making it difficult to breathe. This can aggravate respiratory ailments, such as bronchitis, asthma, emphysema, and COPD. By avoiding exercise, elevated carbon dioxide levels prevent injury and promote the healing of lung tissues. Exercise reduces carbon dioxide levels and reduces the protection and healing of the lungs. Smokers and asthmatics, in particular, should never do exercise. An estimated 10% of people are affected by bronchoconstriction caused by exercise, also known as exercise-induced asthma. Source: newup360.com, June 13, 2013. Exercise ages the skin and tissues of the body. Reduced levels of carbon dioxide, as a result of hyperventilation, prevent the body from healing and protecting skin and tissue. Regular exercise ages the skin more than just about anything else. Exercise is particularly harmful in old age because the stress caused by exercise will be that much greater. Existing scientific evidence does not support a strong argument for late-life exercise as an effective means of reducing disability. Source: Julie J. Kieser, et al., Have We Oversold the Benefit of Late-Life Exercise? J. Gerontal Abiel Medicine, 2001, 56, 7, M412 M423. Exercise harms just about every part of the body. Synthesis of glutamine in the brain, carbon dioxide fixation, and many other vital chemical reactions depend on carbon dioxide levels not being reduced by hyperventilation. Exercise can cause or aggravate sleep apnea. Regularity and smoothness of breathing is controlled by carbon dioxide. Lack of carbon dioxide leads to hypocapnia, central apnea, which is a popular scientific term used by many doctors and scientists to describe the origins of sleep apnea. Exercise increases body toxicity. For up to about 4 hours after exercise, the body will have an increased accumulation of toxins, free radicals, and byproducts, lactic acid. These highly reactive molecules can damage cells and, as mentioned, are believed to be at the root of much illness, cell mutation, cancer, and the accelerated aging of the body. Also, since exercise increases metabolism, there is an increased production of waste and byproducts. Collectively, these wastes serve to increase the toxicity of the body. The myth that exercise cleans out or detoxifies the body is just that, a myth. In fact, exercise serves to increase the accumulation of toxic wastes in the body. Exercise causes gastritis, ulcers, and urinary stones. Dr. K.P. Tico and over 180 of his medical colleagues, source, www.normalbreathing.com, found that carbon dioxide controls and regulates the composition and properties of many bodily fluids, including secretions of the stomach, the composition and properties of saliva and mucus, and the pH of the urine. For most people in conditions of hyperventilation, stomach and urinary pH become too low, too acidic, promoting development of gastritis and ulcers or urinary stones. So, Quite apart from the harm caused by free radicals, there are many other negative effects of becoming breathless through exercise. Exercise makes mucus congestion worse. People with asthma, hay fever, bronchitis, pneumonia, cough, cystic fibrosis, and other respiratory problems should not practice forcing a cough to clear out their mucus to clear the congestion. If they breathe less, their bodies will produce less mucus and cilia will work better to remove any existing mucus, since cilia also require more oxygen and blood supply to better work. Any deep abdominal breaths, and exercise in particular, should be avoided so as to keep up the level of carbon dioxide in the blood. You should endeavor to breathe more slowly and lightly. Exercise damages the brain. Hyperventilation, as a result of exercise, can damage the brain as a consequence of reduced blood flow. When capillary constriction reduces blood flow to the brain, this results in less glucose, carbon dioxide, and oxygen reaching the brain. Any interruption of blood flow to the brain has almost immediate consequences. And these consequences can be catastrophic. Also, there is evidence that restricted blood flow to the brain can cause oxidative stress, leading to an increased risk of Alzheimer's disease. For the evidence and more information on this subject, please see Why You Should Never Exercise, at deliveredonline.com. Myth 8. Exercise is good for the heart. Reality. Exercise is particularly bad for the heart. Conventional advice says that you should exercise as this helps to keep you healthy and it gives you a good cardiovascular workout. The reality is that any kind of exercise that makes you breathless and or sweaty is bad for health, and it certainly does not aid the cardiovascular system in any way. In fact, exercise is particularly bad for the heart because it stresses the body and the heart, and in doing so it causes a host of health problems. You should look after your heart by always avoiding all kinds of exercise throughout life. But it is important to be physically active in ways that do not make you breathless and or sweaty. When you become breathless through exercise, you deprive the body of oxygen, and this in turn oxidizes circulating cholesterol in the blood. And this in turn promotes arterial plaque. When you sweat through exercise, you lose vitamins B6, B9 and B12 in significant amounts. The loss of these vitamins prevents the body from breaking down and excreting homocysteine, which is always building up in the body. So as a result of sweating, the levels of homocysteine in the body go up, and this in turn greatly accelerates the formation of plaque in arteries. Also, exercise is known to harm the heart muscles. Many studies show that athletes have a far higher incidence of heart disease compared to non-athletes. The fact is that the heart never needs exercising. The heart works very hard pumping the blood and keeping us alive, and we can help the heart to stay healthy by not putting it under undue stress through exercise. The quickest and surest way to develop heart disease is to do regular exercise. However, for general good health you do need to be physically active, but in ways that do not make you breathless or sweaty. Why should you be physically active? Because it is important to maintain firm, strong muscles in the arms and legs, as these muscles act as an energy warehouse for the body, thus helping to keep you slim and healthy. Also, firm muscles in the forelimbs will greatly help you to stay agile and pain-free throughout life. In summary, advice to do exercise to protect your heart is incorrect and dangerous advice, as exercise actually damages the heart. Rather, you should be physically active without becoming breathless and or sweaty, as this does indeed protect the heart indirectly by helping to keep you healthy. For the evidence and more information on this subject, please see Beat Heart Disease Now, at deliveredonline.com. Myth 9. Exercise burns calories and helps you lose weight. Reality. Exercise does not help you lose weight or stay slim. In fact, exercise actually makes you fat. Yes, exercise actually makes you fat for a variety of reasons. Here is just one of those reasons. Cortisol is a hormone released by the adrenal glands when there is a stress put on the body. This stress we are referring to is exercise, because physical activity brings the body out of homeostasis temporarily and causes the release of cortisol. However little the exercise, If it makes you breathless and / or sweaty, the exercise is stressing the body, and this in turn triggers your hormones to inject cortisol into the bloodstream to deal with the stress. The greater the exercise, the greater the level of cortisol. In fact, the body puts cortisol into the blood to work hand in glove with insulin as a way of maintaining a steady level of glucose in the bloodstream. When cortisol is injected into the bloodstream, this has the direct effect of increasing abdominal fat. This is why athletes and those who exercise regularly are much more prone to being overweight, particularly around the stomach, hips and thighs. It is ironic that most people who go running do so to be slim, yet that same exercise only serves to make them fatter. Worse still is the fact that the surplus body fat gained from exercise is of the worst kind. The higher levels of cortisol gained from exercise predispose the body to store fat around the midriff. In women this means around the waist, hips and thighs. In men it means around the abdomen, giving men a pot belly or spare tire. This type of surplus body fat is particularly unhealthy and very difficult to get rid of. One of the interesting but paradoxical observations in my clinical practice is the rather large number of patients presenting with severe obesity, who have histories of successful competitive sports careers. Source: Dr. Arya Sharma, MD/PhD, FRCPC, Professor of Medicine and Chair in Obesity Research and Management at the University of Alberta, Canada, www.sharma.ca. The heights and weights of 1,749 Special Olympics athlete volunteers participating in the Special Olympics Games in 1999 and 2001 were measured, and body mass index, BMI, was computed. Adult athletes from the United States were at least 3.1 times more likely to be overweight or obese compared with their non-US counterparts. The risk of obesity in US Special Olympic athletes parallels the prevalence of obesity in the general US population. Source: Harris N. et al., Prevalence of Obesity in International Special Olympic Athletes as Determined by Body Mass Index, JAM Diet Associates 2003 Feb 103-2357. In contrast to public beliefs, there are studies showing the higher prevalence of metabolic syndrome or obesity among athletes comparing with normal population, which make athletes more prone to develop cardiovascular disorders. Source: Behzad Farah Arni, Prevalence of Different Electrocardiographic Patterns in Iranian Athletes, Acta Medica Iranica, Volume 50, No. 8, 2012. A major effect that extreme exercise has on our bodies is an immediate increase in cortisol, the hormone that is released when the body is under stress. Heavy resistance exercises are found to stimulate markedly acute cortisol responses, similar to those responses found in marathon running. Chronically high levels of cortisol can increase your risk for a variety of health issues, such as sleep disturbances, digestive issues, depression, weight gain, and memory impairment. Excess cortisol also encourages fat gain, particularly around the abdomen. Source: Chris Kresser, MD. Why You May Need to Exercise Less, 2012, chriskresser.com. In fact, cortisol is released into the blood however little you may exercise because, as mentioned, as soon as you begin to stress the body by becoming breathless and / or sweaty, the stress triggers cortisol. It is not being suggested that all those who exercise necessarily get fat. Nor is it being suggested that you will gain surplus weight while actually exercising. Evidence FTEIC that regular exercise increases the tendency to accumulate surplus body fat during your life more than otherwise. Regarding calories, exercise does not burn calories or burn fat. In fact, exercise drains the muscles of glycogen, a form of stored energy that we use for everyday activities. The body replaces this lost energy from the food you eat rather than from stored fat. This is so because when your muscles are drained of energy through exercise, this compels you to consume food to replace the lost energy. and your stored body fat remains virtually intact. You are compelled to do this as otherwise you risk fainting from hunger and exhaustion, or you may suffer from low blood sugar, hypoglycemia, which can quickly develop into a medical emergency. As a result of being compelled by exercise to eat/drink replacement energy, some of this replacement energy ends up as yet more surplus body fat. Put simply, food is converted into blood glucose, but the body never converts all this glucose into muscle energy. Some of it is always stored as body fat. For the evidence and more information on this subject, please see Exercise Makes You Fat at deliveredonline.com. Myth 10: Exercise helps prevent diabetes. Reality: exercise is a major cause of diabetes. Diabetes is a terrible disease that is reaching epidemic proportions worldwide. It can cause permanent disability and can lead to blindness, amputations and an early death. The website diabetes.co.uk says, people with diabetes are encouraged to exercise regularly for better blood sugar control. The reason for this is that muscles which are working use more glucose than those that are resting. Muscle movement leads to greater sugar uptake by muscle cells and lower blood sugar levels. This is a very confusing statement, so let's try to analyze it. Put simply, diabetes.co.uk is saying that when you move your muscles, through exercise, this uses up some or all of the energy that is stored in the muscles. This in turn allows glucose in the blood to be used to replenish the lost energy in the muscles. And this in turn helps to stabilize blood glucose levels, which must never be allowed to get too high or too low. This argument works if the so-called exercise does not make you breathless or sweaty. Physical activity that is not sufficiently vigorous to make you breathless/sweaty is good for health because it helps to develop/maintain your muscles, and this in turn allows the body to store more energy. But exercise that makes you breathless/sweaty is bad for health in many respects, and particularly bad when it comes to diabetes. Here is why: any kind of exercise that is sufficiently vigorous to make you breathless/sweaty will drain your muscles of energy. When the body detects that the muscles are drained, or nearly drained, of energy, it goes into survival mode and sucks glucose into the bloodstream from what you consume and from various sources inside the body. In order for the body to do this, cortisol is triggered. That is, the body injects cortisol into the blood as a way of pulling as much glucose as possible into the bloodstream. As a result, glucose in the blood goes up. Remember, the body is in panic mode. It is metaphorically thinking that life is at risk if it doesn't quickly feed glucose to the muscles. So a kind of knee-jerk reaction takes place in which glucose in the blood quickly goes up. But the body cannot allow the level of glucose to get too high, so insulin is triggered as a way of moving glucose from the blood to the muscles. In effect, cortisol and insulin work as a team to keep the level of glucose in the blood under control. When you exercise, your blood glucose level is kept pretty stable, assuming you are not diabetic, because cortisol acts to bring glucose into the bloodstream and insulin acts to take it out and feed it to muscles, a kind of in one end and out the other end. In the past it was therefore thought that exercise could only be a good thing for preventing or ameliorating diabetes, since blood glucose during and immediately after exercise was kept stable. But the latest research is saying that this is no so. That in fact, exercise is a major cause of diabetes, and that if you are diabetic you should definitely avoid all forms of exercise. Here is why: as stated, when you exercise, this triggers cortisol and insulin into orchestrating the availability of glucose to replenish the muscles that are being drained of energy. This means that whenever you exercise and during cooling down periods, the body is continuously triggering an insulin response to manage the availability of glucose for the muscles. In other words, exercise puts your insulin on steroids, metaphorically speaking, and this greatly wears out the body's ability to produce insulin when it is required. Eventually, the body becomes less capable of producing insulin, known medically as insulin resistance. When this happens, you have diabetes. To put it simply, Exercise greatly increases the risk of insulin resistance and hence the risk of diabetes. If you already have diabetes, when you exercise you will not have enough insulin to replenish the energy drained from the muscles. As a result, glucose will quickly build up in the blood, causing a medical emergency known as hypoglycemia. Diabetics in particular should never exercise. To stay fit, whether or not you are diabetic, simply switch from exercise to physical activity. That is, do physical activity without becoming breathless or sweaty. This will not drain the muscles of energy, and hence will not trigger a cortisol or insulin response in the body, or if it does so it will be very mild. For the evidence and more information on this subject, please see Why You Should Never Exercise at deliveredonline.com. Further information: if you want to find out more about the topics raised in this book, please visit www.deliveredonline.com and scroll down to find any particular title. Below is a brief description of some of the books related to topics in this report. Title: Beat Heart Disease Now. The only way to beat heart disease that truly works. Heart disease creeps up on you unawares and can cause permanent disability and premature death. The time to combat heart disease is now, however healthy you may think you are. Traditional advice tells you to follow a low-fat diet, avoid high-cholesterol foods, eat oily fish, take fish oil supplements and do exercise. Yet all such advice is not only wrong but is actually conducive to heart disease. You will discover why athletes have a far higher incidence of heart disease compared to non-athletes, and exactly how exercise triggers two little-known health issues that greatly accelerate the accumulation of plaque in the arteries. You will discover why exercise is a leading cause of heart disease and stroke, killing millions of people every year. You will discover why fish oil supplements and oily fish are so bad for health, and why we should increase rather than reduce our blood cholesterol. This vital book really is an absolute must-have for anybody wanting good health. www.deliveredonline.com. Title: Why You Should Never Exercise. This book explodes the wide-held belief that exercise is beneficial. Just about any kind of physical exercise oxidizes and ages the body before its time, causing a multitude of illnesses and chronic bad health. You will discover why exercise is so bad for health and why you don't need to do exercise to stay physically fit, healthy and slim. The latest research is clearly showing that exercise shortens life expectancy, is bad for health in general, and causes a host of problems such as osteoarthritis, osteoporosis, breast cancer, heart disease and weaker bones, to name just a few of the issues. Once you give up, exercise will feel better physically and emotionally, and you will wonder why on earth you ever did exercise. The author, Russell Eaton, takes you on a journey of discovery like no other. It will shatter many long-held beliefs and leave you looking in a completely new direction when it comes to protecting your health and well-being. www.deliveredonline.com. Title: Beat Osteoporosis Now. The only way to beat osteoporosis that really works. Osteoporosis is a terrible and silent disease that usually catches people by surprise. And once you start to suffer bone fractures as a result of osteoporosis, it can be a very painful disease that limits just about every aspect of daily life. About 1 out of every 2 women and about 1 out of every 3 men will suffer from osteoporosis if they do nothing about it. This ebook exposes for the first time ever the real cause of osteoporosis and the only way to combat this terrible disease. Osteoporosis is not caused by a lack of calcium in the diet or by a lack of exercise. Once you know what really causes osteoporosis, you can easily take action to prevent it, or ameliorate it if you already have osteoporosis. This truly astonishing guide provides vital information that everybody should have regardless of your current state of health. www.deliveredonline.com. Title: Exercise Makes You Fat. The book Exercise Makes You Fat is due to be published at the end of November 2013. Please go to www.deliveredonline.com and subscribe to our mailing list to stay informed about this book. To acquire the latest edition of this free ebook, World's Greatest Health and Exercise Myths, Top 10 Misconceptions, please go to www.deliveredonline.com. Please feel free to give copies of this ebook to anybody you like, or ask them to obtain a free copy by going to www.deliveredonline.com.